Are you an established small business owner or aspiring entrepreneur? Would you like professional advice to help your business grow and succeed? Well, look no further. The Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center is the territory's #1 resource to move your business forward. Enjoy no-cost advising, low-cost training, and technical assistance from experts in both the public and private sectors. The VISBDC is nationally accredited and sustained by the University of the Virgin Islands and the U.S. Small Business Administration. Visit us at our locations on St. Thomas, St. John, or St. Croix, and follow us on social media at VISBDC. For easy access to all our training and networking events, be sure to join our newsletter and download the VISBDC app. The Virgin Islands Small Business Development Center, here to help your business start, grow, and succeed.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session. My name is Sharika Industrious Phillips, and I am the Network Marketing Coordinator here at the VISBDC. In the Virgin Islands, we don't just talk about disaster preparedness as a what if. For us, it's a when. We know the rhythm of the seasons and we know the strength of our spirit, but as business owners, we also know that resiliency is about more than just boarding up windows or backing up hard drives. True resiliency is the ability not just to survive a disruption, but to pivot, recover, and stay open for the community that relies on you. Today's webinar, Business Resiliency as Disaster Preparedness, is about moving from a defensive posture to a proactive strategy. To help us navigate this, I'm honored to introduce our presenter for today. He is a dedicated advocate for small businesses across Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. As the SBA Senior Area Manager for the USVI, he has helped countless entrepreneurs access the capital and the confidence they need to compete. Please join me in welcoming Wayne Huddleston. Here's a friendly reminder to place your questions in the chat, and they will be addressed by the presenting team either directly in the chat or later during our question and answer segment. A copy of today's presentation will be attached to the post survey email sent after this live session. We encourage you to take a few minutes of your time to briefly fill out that survey that lets us know how we are doing. This data is essential to us rendering these deliverables complimentary to you. So without further ado, Wayne, the floor is yours.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Sharika, for a very kind introduction. Today's presentation is going to be about disaster assistance. Thank you for coming, because too often many people do not think about a disaster until it hits or it's right upon us, and that is oftentimes, unfortunately, too late. So just by being here, I can tell you guys and ladies and gentlemen are proactive thinkers, and I'm glad to have you here. Today's presentation is going to be relatively brief. I'm going to give a broad overview of preparation and then how SBA responds in recovery. I'm going to go over the major programs, but my goal is to leave plenty of time at the end to answer any questions you have regarding SBA disaster assistance, but also SBA in general. I'll also let you know during our question and answer team, I'm very thankful to have 2 members of our disaster assistance team from Puerto Rico here that are on this with me. They'll be able to answer any questions you have. But right now, I'll just jump right into it. So let's see. Let's go. Okay, here we go. As I mentioned, we're going to talk about 2 areas, preparedness and then the recovery options that SBA provides afterwards if a disaster does strike. But first, let's talk about preparedness. So one of the most important things you can do is to assess your risk for certain scenarios. There can be fires, there can be flooding. Here in the Virgin Islands, I do this presentation around this time each year because it's a little bit ahead of hurricane season, which is something that all of us deal with on an annual basis, no matter what, the threat of hurricanes. So it's important to assess your risk. I want to show this chart to make a point. So in 2017, we all remember that was a pretty serious year for the Virgin Islands. But the Hurricane Center, through NOAA, through Colorado State's Department of Atmospheric Science and other sources, do a forecast each year. 2017, there were 11 to 17 named storms forecasted, and a total of 4 to 9 hurricanes forecasted, and 2 to 4 major hurricanes. For the last 2 years, they have predicted a very active season, 17 to 25 and 24, 13 to 19 storms in 2025, with a prediction of major hurricanes 4 to 7 in the Atlantic area in 2024 and 3 to 5 in 2025. This year, they are already putting out their forecasts. They're expecting it to be a little bit less than before, with 13 possible named storms, total of 6 hurricanes, with 2 of those likely to turn into major hurricanes. So what does that mean for us? And this is the most important point I want you to take from this, is that there is no strong correlation between the number of storms or hurricanes and the impact to our territory in any given season. You must prepare no matter what the forecast is. If you're just looking at these forecasts and making your decisions accordingly, in 2017, you might have thought, oh, it's not going to be that big a year. There's not going to be that many major hurricanes. It's kind of a low year. And it was, as you know, a devastating year. Not only did we get a major hurricane, we got 2 Category 5 hurricanes that hit our territory that year, and we are still recovering. In 2024 and 25, all the models were predicting a very active season, and we had nothing. So you just never know. So you must prepare no matter what the forecast is. Now, don't ignore the forecast. Don't ignore especially when we're in hurricane season, you want to keep an eye on the storms that are brewing out there. But my point is, you must prepare no matter what. Because 25% of businesses do not open again after a disaster. And you don't want to be one of those 25%. You want to be prepared ahead of time to know what your risks are, not only with hurricanes, but with fires, with things like COVID, flooding, or what have you, earthquakes. Rare, but they can happen in our area. So you want to make sure you're prepared no matter what. And that's what this presentation is about today. So there are 6 primary elements of any preparedness plan. One, and probably one of the most important, is to establish a communications plan, especially if you have employees. You want to think about how you can communicate with them, especially if internet is knocked out or cell phone damage occurs. You want to have backup numbers for everyone, maybe even some of their relatives, so that you can communicate with them and make sure you have a way to get in contact. You want to have a way to protect your documents. If they're all in one file in your building, you want to make sure you have some backups in some way, either virtually or in another location, or both. Now is the time to review your insurance coverage, not during when a hurricane is bearing down on you or something else is happening. Every year, at some point during the year, you should review your insurance coverage to make sure what you have is sufficient. You want to create a solid supply chain, especially if you have items that typically come from off island, outside the territory. You want to make sure you have a way of still being supplied if necessary. You want to have a plan for an alternate location if necessary. And importantly, you want to practice and exercise your plan with the staff. Make sure they understand what's happening. At least visit it once a year. And then, of course, if you have some warning of a disaster like a hurricane coming, then you can go over it with them again. But even when nothing's happening, you want to make sure at least once a year you go over that with your staff so that they understand what the protocols are. So you want to think about your facilities, which is very important. A lot of people a lot of businesses rely on a physical location. You want to make sure that space is usable, or you have another location, or you have some backup ways, either through generators, if you need power, extra supplies on hand that you may need, and other functions that you want to make sure are going properly so that you can stay open and continue to operate. There are many businesses that actually, when a disaster hits, they can thrive if they are prepared to respond and operate as a business when disaster strikes. So lots of times there are, for instance, there may be like multiple stores where you can get supplies. If 2 or 3 of your competitors go out and you're prepared to still stay open and supply people, then you can actually have a booming business after the hurricane. But you need to make sure you have a plan for that. As I mentioned before, you need to at least once a year review your insurance options. Make sure you have enough insurance to get your business back in operation. As a business grows, it becomes more costly sometimes to keep the business going. So you want to make sure you have the insurance that keeps up with your growth as a business. You want to make sure you know what is and what is not covered. Sometimes people think they're covered for something like flood damage, but then there may be a provision in the insurance policy that says you're not. So you want to make sure you are. Or if flooding is not an issue for you, you don't have to, but you want to make sure that you have what can impact your business, that you have sufficient coverage for it, all the situations that happen. There are several examples online where you can get more information. Ready.gov provides a fantastic suite of resources, many that are tailored to specific kinds of disasters, such as fire or hurricane or flooding or what have you. There's also another site called disastersafety.org that provides a lot of fantastic templates and checklists that you can just download free of charge. There's also information on our site. At the end of this presentation, before we go into Q&A, I'm going to take you to a couple of those sites so you know how to navigate to them, where you can download information, and where you can especially download some of these templates that you can apply directly to your business and your situation to do your annual disaster preparedness plan. All right. In the second section here, we're going to talk about recovery. What would happen if a disaster actually strikes? So I want to make sure you understand SBA's role in disaster recovery. SBA disaster loans are the primary source of federal assistance to help property owners pay for disaster losses that are not covered by insurance or other recoveries. We offer low-interest loans to businesses of all size. This is the only time where we offer loans to private nonprofit organizations and homeowners and renters to help cover losses on their personal property. Our disaster assistance program is activated when there's a federal disaster declared by FEMA, SBA, or the USDA. There are other parts of that, but it has to be an official declaration. It can't just be the local governor declaring a disaster on his own. It has to be together with the federal government as well so that we can bring these resources to bear. You can always look online. There is this site here where you can go to lending.sb.gov, search disaster. It is a fantastic tool. You can just put in your county, put in your area, and see if there is an active disaster declaration in your area. There are oftentimes, sometimes people don't know there's an active disaster declaration in their area because it didn't get much news, or maybe the disaster wasn't as broad enough that most people were aware. But sometimes, of course, when a major hurricane hits, people think there probably is a disaster and you can find it there, but sometimes it's drought. Sometimes it's other things that can trigger a disaster that may not be on your radar, but you can always see where the active disasters are, when the deadlines are for applying, because those disasters declarations don't go on forever. There is a time when they end. So you want to make sure you want to see when a disaster declaration starts, where it applies to, what it applies for, and when it ends. There are some basic requirements. You must be in a declared county. This is very important, and I want to give an example that is uniquely applicable here in the Virgin Islands. During the 2017 hurricanes, many people saw Irma and Maria coming in advance and were very proactive to be very responsible and protect their assets. There was a charter business in St. John that had a charter boat, And when Irma was coming down, he's like, I need to protect my boat. It's in this open area. I think it's going to get damaged. It's the only boat I have for my business. There was a cove just not too far away at St. John. You could essentially swim to it from, I mean, not at St. John, in Tortola. You essentially swim to it from St. John. It was a protected, more protected cove than what he was in. So he took his boat over there, he anchored, and thought he was doing the right thing to protect it as much as possible. Unfortunately, Irma was very strong, caused massive damage, and sunk his boat. When he began applying for aid, even though he was an American, his business was based in the United States. It was licensed in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Everything about it made sense for him to get a loan. Unfortunately, his property was not in the United States. It was technically, even though he could stand on St. John and see where his boat sunk, it was technically in a foreign country, and it was technically in Tortola. Therefore, according to the laws as they're written, we were not allowed to provide that person a loan to recover for his boat. So it's important that your damaged property must be in the declared county, and in our area, the declared region or the declared island. If your property leaves that area, it is not eligible. You must have basic credit history. Our standards are pretty loose, but you got to have some basic, a decent credit to show that you can and will repay all your loans. For eligibility, homeowners may apply for up to $500,000 to replace or repair a primary residence. Renters may borrow up to $100,000 to repair or replace personal property. Secondary homes are not eligible. However, if it's qualified rental property, it could be eligible under SBA's Business Physical Disaster Home Loan Program. Proceeds cannot be used for upgrades or addition or improving your property beyond what was damaged. But you may be eligible for up to a 20% increase for improvements that can be categorized as mitigation against future storms. Payments are deferred for 12 months. So in the first year of you receiving that loan, you do not have to make any payments. You may if you want, but you do not have to. Interest rate will not exceed 4%. It fluctuates, but it's typically 3 point something for these loans. You have up to 30 years to repay them, and collateral is not required on loans over $50,000. Now, there are different types of loans that we have. So we have those personal property loans, but I'm going to talk about business physical disaster loans right now. You have up to $2 million on qualified businesses for most private nonprofit organizations to cover losses that are not covered by insurance. Proceeds from insurance may be deducted from your eligible loan amount. They can be used to repair real property, machinery, equipment, fixtures, leasehold improvements. Again, just like with a personal property loan, they cannot be used to upgrade or expand your business, but you can get the 20%, up to 20% for mitigation purposes. Terms are very similar, 12 months deferred, less than 4% typically. It will not, if credit is unavailable elsewhere, interest rate will not exceed 8% if there is credit available elsewhere. But the same rules apply as far as the amount of time, 30 years to repay, and collateral is required on loans over $50,000. So that's physical personal property, and this is physical business property. And then we have what are called economic injury disaster loans. And this is where you can get up to $2 million based on your actual economic injury. You must have had a direct impact by the disaster, and you must be able to show that. You must be able to show that you cannot cover expenses due to a disaster or debt payments. And again, you must be physically located in the disaster area. These proceeds can be used for just working capital, just to keep the business open, to pay your employees or pay your bills and normal expenses that you normally have. But they cannot be used for facility expansion, buying additional assets or refinancing your debt, or paying out bonuses or those types of things. They can only be used to cover your normal required expenses that you would not be able to otherwise cover. Terms are very similar. Payments and interest deferred for 12 months. interest rate will not exceed 4%, up to 30 years to repay, and again, collateral is required on loans over 50,000. You do play a part in making sure that you can obtain these loans. And one of the most important things is to make sure that your financial statements are proper and they're accurate, that your tax filings are honest and correct and on time. And this is an issue that I've seen multiple times down here. I understand many businesses want to lower their tax obligation as much as they can. But I have seen instances where there have been businesses that made or had annual revenues of $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, but in order to reduce their tax burden, they understated what they had typically made in revenue. Maybe they said they made 30 or 40,000. When SBA is reviewing your application to approve an economic injury disaster loan, we must look at your tax returns and your statements to know exactly what your business is actually bringing in. If you have put down on your tax returns that you made far less, then that's going to impact the amount that you can be approved for. So you want to make sure that you're honest, that it's accurate, correct, and on time. You don't want to be running around after a storm to try to hurry up and file tax returns for the past couple of years because you haven't done it. You want to make sure you do it on time every year and that you're ready to go. You want to maintain a good credit score. You want to think through and forecast your income and show how that how your income flows in your business, what the cash flow is like, and you're using your resources correctly. There's a lot of information out there. Again, I'm going to pause this and I'm going to go out because I think the next slide is just the questions. But I'm going to before we get to questions, I'm going to take you to a few sites. But our sba.gov/disaster site has a lot of fantastic information. That's the first one I'm going to go to and show you. You can also contact our customer service center at 800-659-2955. Those are people that are there to answer your questions on any declared disaster, but also any loan you may already have. And you can also email us at disastercustomerservice@sba.gov if you have any questions about a disaster or if you have questions about a current disaster loan. That number and that email are not for COVID loans. That is separate. But for any other type of disaster loan, you can feel free to contact them as well. And then you have local resources that are available to help you at any time. SBDC, our host today, has counselors and advisors who have been highly trained in how to prepare a business plan, how to assess your risk, how to assess your business, and the kind of things you need to do to be prepared. If a disaster strikes, SBA and FEMA cooperates closely with SBDC. SBDC often hosts loan application centers and centers where SBA staff can be there in person to answer your questions. SBDC is an excellent resource for anything related to disaster. Same with SCORE. SCORE has a presence here of mentors. They also have mentors outside the territory who can help. They can help with these business plans. They can help with your disaster preparation plans. They can help with all sorts of things. Their service is free, and they're located here in the territory as well. And then finally, there's what we call a VBOC, Veterans Business Outreach Center. They offer services very similar to SBDC and SCORE. They are just focused solely on veteran-owned businesses. They offer training and advice. They can certainly help with disaster preparation and planning. They will also be apprised of any disaster declaration in the area and cooperate closely with SBA anytime there's a disaster. Okay, so I'm going to take you to a couple of sites real quick before we get to questions. So let's see, let me pull that up. All right, so as I mentioned before, if you just type in SBA disaster preparedness, the first website that comes up is ours. Anytime you're looking for SBA, you just want to make sure there's a .gov in that address, and you can be assured that that's us. When you go to that site, we have a really good page that helps you think through how to mitigate your risk, assess it, how to create your plan. We have a business resilience guide that is free of charge for you. You can download on our site. We have hurricane tips, tornado tips, flood safely tips, all sorts of things. And then we have all the information that I've covered here in today's presentation. They'll provide more information on economic injury disaster loans, home and property disaster loans. There's also a military reservist economic injury disaster loan, which is very similar to our regular economic injury disaster loan. It's just for people who have been deployed or have many of their employees deployed. That's where that can be used. So there's a lot of fantastic information on here. One of the sites is right here, ready.gov. I mentioned that earlier. Has a lot of fantastic information on here, a lot of toolkits, business plans you can download, all sorts of things. So I just want to show those sites to you that they exist and they're here to help you. And that's it for my presentation. I'll put that over to questions now, and I'll come off and come on video. And again, we have several other people here from our disaster team who can help you answer any questions you may have. So fire away if you have any.
Alrighty, thank you for that, Wayne. So persons do have the ability to unmute their mic and ask directly. So if you have a question, now is the time. Alrighty, Wayne. I don't see any hands raised at this time. I don't see any questions in the chat as yet. Okay. Alrighty, so I guess I can go ahead and defer to what we have to come. So I'll go ahead and share my screen so everyone can see the VISPDC website. So when you get to our website, I just want persons to be able to go to training, events, and when you click here, you can see the different focus areas that we're delivering webinars on right now. And we do have an in-person event that's coming up. USVI Government Contracting and Matchmaking Summit. It's a territory-wide event. It happens on St. Croix first at our university campus, the UVI Great Hall, and it's from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And the following day, May 6th, it happens on St. Thomas and the 13th, the Innovation Center. So we want you to go ahead and register for that. And so I'm going to go to the VISPDC registration portal to show you how to access this presentation after the live presentation. So what you want to do is you want to pay attention to the event type, select on demand, and when you hit search, everything that has happened in the past 2 weeks will appear here, and you can go ahead and watch at your leisure. Send us an email if you need access to the slide deck. So let me go ahead and mention what's to come. Alrighty, on April 22nd, we have VISPDC advisor, Mr. Darrell Edwards, and he is going to close off Financial Literacy Month with Blueprint for Success, a practical guide to writing a business plan. We have our Government Contracting Matchmaking Summit coming up. The Agriculture Business Center, the target population is farmers and fishers. On May 6th, they do have a presentation with regards to the Community Impact Fund. So we want you guys to go ahead and sign up for that if it applies to your business type. On May 11th, we have VISPDC advisor Liza Magnolis, and she is presented at 11 a.m. The Island Premium Brand, Marketing Quality Over Price. On May 12th, we have Wayne returning, and he's delivering another session entitled Disaster Preparation and Mitigation for Your Business. The time to plan is now. On May 13th, we have our USVI SCORE chapter, and they're presenting Navigate and Elevate Master the USVI SCORE Mentorship. So that's May 13th at 11 a.m. And on May 26th, we have Wayne back again, and he's doing the 5 C's of SBA loan eligibility. And our webinar will start at 10 a.m. So let me go back to the live event, see if we have any questions in the chat. Wayne, we do not at this time. So I want to tell everyone, thank you for attending our webinar today. Your participation is appreciated. And so compliments of the entire VISPDC network directly from our state director, Ms. Karen Jones. We thank you for being here today, and we wish you a productive rest of the day. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.